Hey guys, Hidden Truths here. Welcome to this new video with a bunch of new stories. I'm trying to hit 10,000 subscribers and I think we can do it with your help. So please subscribe. It would honestly mean a lot to me. Now, let's get right into the stories.
Sierra pushed her phone across the couch, the screen full of a reel where champagne foamed against a blue that could only be the Mediterranean. Monaco summers, she said, like it was a scent you could order online. The timing was almost funny. I had my laptop open to a spreadsheet where the cells were a tug-of-war: preschool deposit due in May, new tires before the first snow, and an HVAC service I kept putting off. I remember thinking, how does anyone make those numbers shake hands? I'm a junior equity analyst, which is just a tidy way of saying I read more footnotes than I do headlines. I like boring companies. I like dividends that show up when they say they will. At night, I run deliveries so there's cash for things that don't budget well, like Rosie's obsession with dinosaur pajamas that she wears until the knees go shiny. I don't hate the work. It's honest. You pick up a bag, you drop off a bag, and no one's pretending it's a yacht. Sierra works in brand partnerships for a tech company that's always redefining the future of something. Her boss, Cole Harrington, is one of those men who looks like an ad for an expensive watch: napkin-folded pocket squares, a haircut that never has a hair out of place, the kind of casual posts from racetracks and Greek beaches that make you think he was born with airline status. Sometimes Sierra laughs and calls it all content, like it's not also gravity. I'm not a monk. I like nice things too. But our nice things are pancakes on Tuesday nights, Rosie's crayons dumped like confetti, and a car that starts without a cough. When Sierra showed me the reel, I told her, it looks beautiful, because it did, and because she was smiling for the first time all week. She leaned in and said softly, "Imagine taking Rosie there." I said, "I'm imagining new tires." The little friction started to stack up like receipts in a glove box. Sierra came home late from work dinners, smelling like a perfume she said a PR contact gave her. "Just samples," she said. "Perks of the job." She said it like an apology wrapped as a gift. There was a new account number she wanted to save, 4 points, which was odd because we had always shared the 2 cards we used. "It's just a hotel loyalty thing for when I book partners," she added. I nodded and told myself not to be the guy who polices loyalty programs. Trust is cheaper than suspicion, I thought, and clicked another cell in my spreadsheet. Rosie started preschool tours, which meant tiny chairs, bins labeled with cartoon animals, and directors who said things like, "play-based learning," with a firmness that told me I should nod. Sierra made a comment about the school by the lake because it had better parent events. I looked at the number next to tuition and felt my stomach do a small, practical roll. I don't argue about schools. I show up with a notebook and ask about reading corners and allergy policies. That's my lane. At work, I covered a few sectors no one fights over at dinner parties. There's a regional logistics company I think the market treats like a hand-me-down, but they're efficient and quietly profitable. There's a medtech firm with a nasal device awaiting FDA review, good data in early trials, still risky, a sliver of my portfolio. And then the industrials, bolts and bearings and things that keep roads from cracking in half. It's not sexy. But I've never trusted stocks you could put on a tote bag. Coal started showing up in Sierra's calendar the way a watermark shows up on paper, faint, but there once you know to look. She'd change a dinner from Tuesday to Wednesday because Cole needs me at this pitch, and I'd take Rosie to the park and time the slide turns so no one cried. "You're a saint," Sierra said, kissing my temple on the way out. I wanted to say, "I'm a dad." It's not sainthood to do the job you signed up for. On a Friday, Sierra came home later than late, shoes in her hand like a teenager. I pretended to be asleep until she crawled beside me with that breezy, "We landed the account," and I murmured, "Congrats," into the pillow. The next morning she left early for bar and errands, and I made pancakes with too many blueberries. Rosie announced they looked like planets and I told her we were eating the Milky Way. She laughed until syrup stuck to her chin. 2 weekends later, we went to a coworker's birthday at a rooftop bar Cole liked. I know because he said so a lot, my favorite spot, tell them my name for a table. The place was glass and views and music engineered to make you feel underdressed. Cole hugged Sierra with both arms and shook my hand like we were both auditioning for something. You keeping this one busy? He asked her, and she winked at him and said, always. Later, on the ride home, Sierra said I was quiet. I said, traffic makes me concentrate. In my email, the monthly card statements showed a few charges I didn't understand. A boutique I'd never heard of, then a high-end spin studio I thought she'd made fun of once. I made a note to ask, then didn't. She came home excited about a mini offsite they were planning at a hotel downtown, strategy sessions with clients. It's all above board, she said unprompted, even before I nodded. Cole has to do everything properly now because of the investors. I said, makes sense. The perfume changed. It was sharper, more intentional. She said, a partner sent me a sample box, and rolled her eyes like it was ridiculous, even as she put a dab on each wrist. I remembered the first scent she wore when we were young and renting a one-bedroom above a laundromat. We'd eat takeout on the floor and rank the best dumplings, and she'd smell like something floral and soft. I didn't say any of that. I washed the dishes and set out the dinosaur pajamas. I'm not a detective. I don't scroll through phones at night or install anything with a covert name. I believe in patterns. So when the same nights kept getting strategy dinner labels and the Hotel Points app kept lighting up with your stay is coming, I told myself it was a company thing. Sierra works hard. The industry is performative. Don't be the jealous cliché, I warned myself, and put another $5 into the account labeled tires. One night, I was out on a delivery near the river, windows cracked, warm air smelling like fried onions from a food truck. I dropped the bag at a condo and checked my phone because the app buzzed. A rideshare receipt pinged into our shared mailbox, timestamped 1:12 a.m. Destination a luxury hotel Sierra swore she never stayed at because it's tacky. The pickup address was a restaurant nowhere near the client dinner she'd mentioned. I stared until the text pinched down to a grain of light. My hands didn't shake. I saved the receipt in a folder I named Tires. I finished my route. I went home. I checked on Rosie. Sierra wasn't in bed yet. The house was quiet in that way a quiet house can be loud. Facts, not fireworks, I told myself, like a prayer I could repeat until it became policy. And then I opened a blank document and started a list. I didn't storm into her office or call Cole's wife in the middle of the night. I didn't smash plates or fire off texts. That sort of drama belongs to people who still think betrayal can be undone by yelling. I knew better. If the truth was there, it would sit quietly in the records. All I had to do was be patient enough to collect it. The next week I started noticing how her corporate calendar synced across devices. I wasn't snooping, she had given me access years ago when we coordinated daycare pickups. Her events started repeating in strange rhythms, 2-hour strategy sessions scheduled right before she'd text me that she was heading home late from a client dinner. Then came the expense PDFs. She never logged in to check them, but HR automatically copied spouses on reimbursements for transparency. Most were boring, rideshares to airports, receipts for working lunches. Buried among them was a bill for a rooftop bar I'd never heard of. I looked it up. The address was across town, nowhere near the seafood restaurant she claimed she'd been entertaining a potential partner. The proof wasn't cinematic. It was boring. Spreadsheet columns, PDF attachments, timestamps in the cloud. But boring is what gets you to certainty. I kept the house steady for Rosie. Pancakes in the mornings, her favorite, sprinkles in the batter when she was good about brushing teeth. Sierra would float through at odd hours, still in her work dress, and kiss Rosie's hair before heading to the shower. I just keep the skillet warm, play along. Meanwhile, I booked a short consult with a custody attorney. Not because I wanted to hurt Sierra, but because the only way through this would be documented structure. I also filled out an intake form for a therapist. If you can't say what you're going through to someone neutral, it just leaks out sideways. I told myself one thing every night while I finished my deliveries: you don't get to collapse. The kid needs Tuesday morning to feel like Tuesday morning. The conversation came sooner than I thought. Saturday night, after Rosie went to sleep, I asked Sierra to sit with me at the dining table. The overhead light was harsh, buzzing faintly like it was nervous too. "I'm not here to accuse," I said. "I'm here with dates and receipts." She tried to look puzzled, but her eyes flickered toward her phone. I slid the printouts across, the rideshare receipt to the hotel, the photo that had auto-backed up from her phone showing a Skyline cocktail I knew wasn't anywhere near the client she mentioned. She didn't deny. She just exhaled, long and slow, as if she'd been waiting for me to catch up. "It started at the off-site," she said finally. "It wasn't supposed to, but it happened." I didn't raise my voice. I asked her to be clear, "Was it with Cole?" She nodded, eyes down. We outlined boundaries right there like two employees in a meeting. Separate bedrooms starting that night. Disclosure to HR on Monday morning so it couldn't be swept under the rug. Clear rule: Rosie would not meet him, or any other partner, during this transition. I told her I'd draft a temporary schedule, she'd take 2 evenings a week, I'd handle the rest. She agreed, though reluctantly. It wasn't triumph. It wasn't closure. It was a procedural step in a process nobody wants. That night, after she retreated upstairs with her pillow, I sat alone at the table and opened my brokerage app. Not to check on them obsessively, I don't trade that way, but out of habit. That's when the notification buzzed. A little after 9:30 p.m., the company I'd invested in, a small medtech outfit I'd been holding quietly for 2 years, announced positive results from its Phase 3 trial. It wasn't meme stock fireworks, but in my world it was a seismic jolt. Analysts were already posting emergency notes. The ticker was climbing in after-hours trading. I stared at the green numbers glowing on the screen. I felt nothing. No victory lap, no vindication. Just the strange irony that the very night my marriage took its final shape, one of my boring convictions finally paid off. I closed the app, shut down the laptop, and went upstairs to check on Rosie. She'd kicked the blanket off again, one hand curled around her stuffed rabbit. I tucked the blanket back over her shoulders. Money solves bills, not character, I thought. And then I turned off the light. The next morning, Sierra acted like the conversation had been a dream. She brewed coffee, asked if I wanted eggs. I reminded her gently that we were in separate rooms now. Her face tightened, but she said nothing. I drove Rosie to the park, pushed her on the swings until she squealed loud enough to drown out everything else. My phone kept buzzing with market alerts I didn't open. There would be time later. At night, when I finally sat down at the desk again, the stock had doubled. My modest position suddenly looked like a future. And all I felt was steady. I trimmed a little, paid down our smallest credit card. Then I turned the screen off. There would be lawyers and mediators and HR meetings ahead. But pancakes were still due in the morning. And I'd make them. The market opened before I had my second cup of coffee, and the little medtech ticker I'd been nursing for years didn't so much rise as skip a floor. Pre-market had it up big, the bell turned big into a number I had to read twice. Analysts who hadn't said its name in months were suddenly clearing their throats on TV, bumping targets, using words like de-risked. I folded Rosie's blanket into her backpack, poured milk over her cereal, and let the graphs do whatever graphs do when you're busy fastening tiny shoes. Sierra came downstairs in a robe, hair damp, texting with both thumbs. She glanced at the red and green on my laptop. "Good day." "Big news in one of the smaller ones," I said. We'll be okay on the card. I'll pay it this week. She nodded without looking up. I have to be in early. There's a leadership sync. Her voice did that thin, neutral thing people use when the truth has made their house a museum, and everything inside is breakable. I took Rosie to preschool. In the parking lot, a dad in a suit wrangled a scooter into a trunk and smiled like we shared a secret. Maybe we did. Maybe every parent dropping a kid at 9 a.m. with a lunchbox knows that the rest of the day is just an elaborate puzzle to protect that morning handoff. Keep the drop-off normal. Keep bedtime songs in the same order. Back at my desk, the alerts kept stacking. My sleepy pick wasn't sleepy anymore. I trimmed gently, no chest pounding, moved the proceeds like a man crossing a creek on stones he trusts because he tested them himself. One transfer paid off the smallest balance. Another bumped the emergency fund until it felt less like a joke. I opened a $529 for Rosie, put in what would have been 3 months of delivery shifts, then set an automatic contribution I knew we could keep even if everything cooled off tomorrow. Then I called a fiduciary I trust and asked about a simple revocable trust, one that would keep things clean for Rosie if a bus ever forgot to look. The guy said, "You sure you don't want to enjoy this a little, Evan?" I told him, "I'm enjoying paying interest to nobody." At lunch, my logistics company, my little, staid, underloved hauler, posted a midday filing about a government contract. The announcement read like all government announcements, all nouns, no adjectives. The stock nudged up, then leaned. A senior analyst on our floor stopped by my cube and said, half laughing, "You and your bolts and boxes." I shrugged. Trucks still have to drive even when reels go dark. I didn't quit my job. I didn't even take the afternoon off. After work, I still changed into the soft-soled shoes and the hoodie that smells like French fries and loaded bags into the back seat. The first delivery was to a group house of grad students who tipped in quarters and kind words. I took the quarters, smiled, and drove to the next stop. Money solves bills, not character. Sierra's HR meeting happened on Monday just like we agreed. She texted me after, fragments. Disclosed. Process. No immediate action. Later that night, another, "He's dealing with comms." I didn't respond. Nothing helpful begins with "he" in a situation like this. Cole's public life cooled in a way you can only see if you've been watching. The yacht posts slowed, the captions turned bland. People forget how loud absence can be. Sierra stopped telling me about offsites. Her gym bag migrated to the back of the closet. Some nights she slept at her sister's after late reviews. Other nights she took the guest room and shut the door softly like she didn't want to wake a cat. Rosie noticed patterns the way kids do, without words. One morning she asked, "Is mommy sleeping over?" and I said, "Yes, but in the blue room," and she nodded like that fit with her private map of the house. I kept routines. Pancakes on Tuesdays, dinosaur pajamas on a rotation, library Saturdays even when I was bone-tired from deliveries. When I had a spare hour, I organized. I printed calendars showing who'd done preschool drop-offs and doctor visits for the past year. I dug out emails about therapy appointments and playdate RSVPs. I labeled everything because that's what you do when your life is about to be explained to strangers, you make the explaining easy. The attorney I'd consulted called to prep for mediation. "We're not going to make this about infidelity," she said, matter of fact. "Judges care about safety, stability, and who does what. Keep your emotions, bring your evidence." "I'm not trying to win a trophy," I said. "I want Rosie's weeks to feel like a steady song." "Good," she said. "We'll ask for primary weekdays with generous weekends. Status quo is your friend. Her age is your friend. Your caregiving history is your friend. Your windfall is irrelevant unless you weaponize it, and you won't." "I'll cover preschool," I said. "Even if we end up splitting, let me handle tuition. Consistency matters." "That's a reasonable offer," she said. We'll put it on paper. 2 days before mediation, Sierra sent one more text, he's taking time. PR is complicated. The ellipsis wasn't passive, it was a small, confessed wound. I typed and then deleted, he has a wife, and settled on, I'll have Rosie home by 6. The morning of mediation, I packed Rosie's lunch and wrote, Daddy loves you, on the napkin like I always do, even though she can't read yet. After drop-off, I drove to a beige office park where all the doorbells sound the same. The mediator's conference room had a long table, a pitcher of water, and a bowl of mints that tasted like chalk. The window looked at a parking lot that looked at another window. Sierra arrived with her attorney. She wore a sweater I bought her 3 Christmases ago. She sat across from me and stared at the table. The mediator, a woman with calm eyes and a notebook that had known too many pens, laid out the ground rules. We're here to build a parenting plan, she said. We're not assigning blame. We're creating a schedule, safety guidelines, and decision-making protocols in Rosie's best interest. My attorney took the lead. Our proposal reflects the current caregiving split. Evan handles weekdays, school mornings, medical appointments. Sierra has availability on weekends. We're asking for Mondays through Fridays with Evan, alternating weekends with Sierra, midweek dinner time, shared holidays. No introduction of romantic partners for 6 months, no overnights with new partners when Rosie is present. Evan will cover preschool tuition for continuity. Sierra's attorney cleared his throat. We appreciate the stability argument, but my client would like to propose a more balanced timeshare. She believes weeknights are important for bonding. My mouth opened and closed. I didn't speak. The mediator looked at me. Evan. I thought of pancakes and dinosaur pajamas and the sound of the market close bell humming from the radio while I rinsed blueberries. I thought of the nights Sierra missed because content never sleeps, and the times I sat in tiny chairs at parent-teacher chats while texting her photos of Rosie's finger paintings. Don't argue. Explain. I'm willing to be generous with weekends and holidays, I said. But Rosie's morning routine is solid with me. She's 4. Moving her around on school nights would turn her week into a suitcase. Silence stretched like a rubber band. Sierra finally looked up. Her eyes were red, but her voice was even. I want to tuck her in, too. You can, I said. Every Wednesday dinner. Every other Sunday overnight. Extra days when work allows. I'm not trying to gatekeep bedtime. I'm trying to protect her sleep. The mediator nodded and made notes. My attorney slid a draft across the table. Sierra's attorney tapped his pen. We'll need to caucus. The mediator smiled gently. Let's take 10 minutes. We stood. The conference room air felt thinner than before. As I reached for the water pitcher, my phone buzzed on the table. The subject line flashed from the school app, policy update, new security and pickup procedures. The mediator glanced at the screen, then at me. Do you need to step out? I stared at the notification, then at Sierra, then at the draft parenting plan between us, 3 corners touching like a fragile bridge. Maybe, I said. The mediator's conference room ended in paper and signatures, not shouting. Sierra's attorney agreed to the plan, primary weekdays with me, alternating weekends with her, midweek dinners so she could read bedtime stories when her schedule allowed. The no-contact rule about romantic partners was written in plain ink, 6 months minimum, no overnights, no introductions. Rosie's life became a map we both signed. Walking out, Sierra looked smaller than I remembered. She said quietly, I never wanted it to get here. I answered with the only line I trusted, we'll keep Rosie steady. It wasn't forgiveness. It was logistics with love threaded through. The court finalized the plan 3 weeks later. The judge, efficient and unsentimental, noted my caregiving history and said, continuity is in the child's best interest. That was it. No speeches, no moral weighing of adults. Just a stamp, a file, a new schedule that now belonged to the state as much as to us. I found a townhouse near the park. 2 bedrooms, a patch of yard where Rosie could dig for worms, and a kitchen just wide enough for a pancake pan and a drying rack of bottles and sippy cups. The walls were beige, but beige is easy to warm with crayon art and taped up preschool drawings. Rosie adapted faster than I expected. Children bend before they break. Tuesdays stayed pancake night. Saturdays became library mornings, where she'd stack books higher than her head and I'd carry the pile like treasure. Bedtime had rituals, dinosaur pajamas, 1 story, then 2 minutes of staring at the ceiling fan until she whispered, "Okay, Daddy, lights out." I kept my routines too. Analyst by day, deliveries on weekends. I didn't have her. Money no longer pressed like a hand on my chest, but I didn't trade my nights for champagne reels. Wealth showed up in quieter places, paying tuition on time, not worrying when the tires wore thin, opening the fridge and seeing groceries bought without checking a balance twice. Sierra's world shifted in a slower collapse. Cole's name slid out of company press releases. His yacht photos vanished, his feed retreated into thought leadership posts that smelled like PR disinfectant. Their affair didn't end in a dramatic crash, it ended like a faucet that stops dripping because the pipe rusted shut. Sierra's texts thinned, then stopped. When we spoke, it was about drop-offs, sunblock, and the color of a new backpack. She ended things with Cole quietly. No announcement, no sob story. Just one night when she picked up Rosie, she said, "It's over." I nodded and said, "I'll have her ready on Sunday." That was enough. Over time, resentment gave way to silence. We weren't partners, but we weren't enemies either. We were 2 people orbiting the same small star, careful not to block its light. I never told Sierra about the portfolio jump in detail. She knows the basics: Rosie's tuition covered, debts cleared, a cushion for the future. But I never paraded numbers. Money, I'd learned, doesn't erase what's been done. It can change an address, yes. It can't change a home. My colleagues joked when they saw my tickers on the move. Evan, the oracle of dull stocks. I just smiled. I wasn't an oracle. I was a man who picked steady stones to cross a river, and some happened to rise when the water fell. Luck favors patience more than genius. I put more into the trust, bought term life insurance big enough to matter but small enough to keep me honest. I still budgeted. Rosie's dinosaur pajamas don't care about ticker symbols. Now life is ordinary in the way I always hoped it could be. The townhouse smells like crayons and syrup. The upstairs hums with the sound of the market close bell on my old radio as I fold laundry. Some nights I sit by the window after Rosie's asleep and watch the park lamps flicker on, kids still laughing as parents call them in. I don't replay the betrayal. I don't script speeches I'll never give. Regret, I've found, is not a monologue, it's a practice. It's showing up on time with snacks and sunscreen. It's listening to Rosie explain the universe as if she invented it. It's making Tuesday pancakes even when I'm tired. Sierra and I exchange brief smiles at handoffs now. Nothing warm, nothing sharp. Just 2 people navigating the bridge they built for their daughter. That's enough. The wealth that arrived didn't transform me into someone new. It gave me margin, not meaning. Meaning was already here, in the bedtime stories, the school drop-offs, the mornings when Rosie reaches for my hand without looking. Some profits change your address, only choices change your home.